I am Fiona Samuel. I'm a screenwriter and a director, and it is my pleasure and privilege to be asked to speak tonight with Rochelle Bright, who wrote the film that you watched tonight. Rochelle is the screenwriter and the originator of Daffodils. She conceived the stage show that became the movie, and this is a really unusual thing in New Zealand. In fact, I'm trying to think of any stage show that has become a movie, and if any of you can think of any, then just call it out to me, because I couldn't think of any. And this is was a really unusual and groundbreaking stage play to start with, so that makes its journey even more unusual and interesting. So, congratulations, Rochelle.
Thank you. I think we're about the third play. There was number 2 by Toa Fraser, and a Roger Hall gliding
middle-age spread.
Yes, was made into a
You're
TV
right.
series.
Wow. Only 3 in all those years. Third time lucky. First question I would like to ask you is, what was the provenance of the idea? What sparked inside you and you thought, something's got to come out of me about this? What was the germ?
It's been a very long process. So I lost my dad when I was 14, and that was for me, quite an epic. I was very close to my dad, and I look a lot like him. So a lot of the family members would naturally tell me stories about my dad, and so my nan told me about the Daffodils and how they both met at the same place, and she was quite chuffed by that. And my sister and I would joke that we'd never go down to the Daffodils because of that reason. And so I kind of, as a storyteller, I had that story in me and wanting to tell their story for probably about 15 years. And I didn't know how I wanted to tell it. And then someone gave me the opportunity to be like, oh, do you want to do a cabaret for a festival? And I was like, okay, maybe New Zealand songs would be awesome. And slowly through thinking about, because I kind of set a bunch of rules for myself that was like, it had to be top 100 APRA songs that you've heard a million times. And from taking that list and listening to those songs, and sometimes it was just kind of pure luck, like Fall at Your Feet came on the radio while I was half asleep and I dreamt that scene.
Wow.
And slowly all the pieces came together, and I was down at the Robert Lord Cottage, supposed to be writing another piece, and it just flew out of me in about a week. All the songs, everything just kind of came out. And yes, it was a long process, but then very fast to write the stage show.
Yeah.
And then we didn't even think about it as a film. It was actually David Stubbs, the director, saw us in Wellington and went, this would be a great film, which is kind of bananas in a strange way.
What did you think when he said that?
Oh, I was like, I've always wanted to work in film, so I was very excited. I'd written a few other scripts, so I was happy to jump on board. And, I talked to Stefan Fenn, and, we looked at everything and decided to go for it. But I think we just went, oh yeah, sure. But when you started to really pull it all apart, you'd probably go, it's a very strange idea to take, what we had done and make it into a film. But David just had complete belief from the beginning. He just knew it was going to make a film. He wanted to make this film. He loved the story, and he was just convinced, like there was not even a question that we weren't going to make it all the way through the process.
I'll just explain that Steph and Fen, who've been mentioned, they're here tonight, they're in the audience, and they arranged the music for the film, and did they also write the original score? Yeah, so they're with us tonight as well, and if any of your questions, because after we've spoken there'll be questions, we hope, if any of your questions relate to the musical aspect of the film, please do, take advantage of the fact that they're here. So we're up to the part where the movie director comes up to you and says, I love your play and I want to make it into a movie. What happens then? Had you written the screenplay for a feature film before?
I had. I'd been working on another script that for quite a long time, and I had got a producer on board for that one. So I'd already played around with screenwriting, and I'd written a second film after that one, which that one will never see the light of day, but it was a good learning experience to keep running through. And I love screenplays. I read a lot of screenplays. Every time I see a film that I love, I go home and find it and read it. So I felt quite excited to give it a go, but it was still a huge learning process, because I'd written a script, but then there's quite a big difference from then writing a finance script to writing a shooting script to, you know, all the different processes through. It was still quite a big new learning experience.
Yeah. Does the film that the audience saw tonight, is it essentially what you wrote, or has it become something else?
No, it's definitely become something else. My favourite way to think of it is that in film they always say the story's told 3 times. So you have the screenplay first, which is your blueprint, and that raises the money for the film. And then as soon as you start production and shooting, that changes everything.
Yeah.
So it was a screenplay that had a lot of scenes. I mean, if you read a lot of screenplays, usually maybe between, 90 to 150 scenes.
Yeah.
This was 213,
Yeah.
which is quite big. Oh gosh, I lost my train of thought. So that kind of version of the script.
Oh, you were saying writing
3
the
ways.
film 3 times, yeah.
Thank you. So that version of the script was there, and then once they started shooting, there'd be things like it rained one day, so originally the wedding scene was outside, now it was in the shearing shed,
Yeah.
which was quite funny. Or they would, things were discovered and found which would change scenes. You'd get down to the end of shooting week and they wouldn't have enough time, so we'd slam 2 or 3 scenes into one moment. So then in production, that changed a lot. And also, like, some scenes just don't work when they're shooting, and so they'll kind of reshift or improvise or change that. And so then you've got that version. And then you go into the editing suite, and it's a completely new story again.
Yeah.
Because they discover and find new things and new energies and storytelling. So it's kind of like the story's told 3 times. So there are some moments that you go, yeah, that's exactly what the script is. And then there's entirely new moments,
Yeah.
which either the director bought or the actors bought, or the production designer came up with some cool things, or, so. Yeah.
Did you ever talk during the sort of the conceiving and the scripting of the film about whose story it was? Did you have?
For many hours.
It's one of our favourite questions.
Yeah, and that changed too through those 3 stages as well.
Oh, tell us about that, because that interests me. So, whose story was it when you started out?
Well, we've always, because the 3 leads are so strong, and really everyone else is kind of surrounding them, it kind of goes in and out between being Maisie's story and strongly Eric's story. But then depending on how it was edited, shifted and focused, that between him and Rose. And I think, we spent a lot of time, between myself, David Stubbs, the director, Emily Anderton, the script consultant and producer, we would go through drafts where there would be a particular focus on Eric's shame, for example, and there'd be a focus on that. And so it did shift quite a lot, but because of the songs, because I think what makes the script a little bit different is it's completely structured by the songs.
Yeah.
And so the songs kind of force the storytelling and whose role it is quite a bit.
Right.
But no, we had so many discussions throughout where we'd go back and forward between Eric and Rose. But I think in this case, it's more strongly Eric's story.
Right. So did Maisie kind of drop down in the pecking order in terms of whose story it was as you went through the process?
Well, we always saw her it was always through her eyes.
Yeah.
But we don't spend that much time with her. So that was kind of where it kind of shifts into Eric's story more. But we spent a lot of time thinking about it.
Yeah.
doing many drafts, going back and forward, and yeah.
It's one of the key questions. Does anybody want to jump in at this point with a question? Because there are, yes, thank you.
Hi Rochelle, great work.
Thank you.
You know the expression, you have to kill your babies. Is there any babies that you've had to kill that you've been expressly remorseful of?
There was lots of baby kills. A lot of the time it was particular little moments, like really tender little moments, or ideas or dialogue between Eric and Rose that we ended up getting rid of quite often. I would say it was quite different with something that's an adaptation of a musical where you've got these particular songs that we kept quite strongly to those song moments. Like we didn't cut any songs, we added 3 new songs. And that process was Stephen Fair, we can probably talk about more. There was a lot of baby kills in that. The Tally-Ho scene was written very many different times with about 3 or 4 different songs. And even between what was eventually written, the Tally-Ho song was then completely rewritten once the song was finished, which for me is my favourite part of collaborating, particularly the song Silent Treatment. The entire scene came to me from hearing that song, because we talked about first the relationships between the characters and what we needed to have happen, and then when this amazing song was written, that kind of inspired the whole scene and what happened. And so no, there was lots of baby skills, but I don't know, I feel like there's so many of us feeding in that
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
I've never heard of any creative project during which no babies were killed. I don't think it ever happens. That has sparked a musical question in me, which is that it's such an audacious concept to build a show around a bunch of classic New Zealand hits. Did anyone say no?
No, we were really lucky.
That I meant the songwriters, like when you approached them, yeah.
No, we were really lucky because many of them had seen the stage show, so they knew what we were doing with them. And actually it was quite lovely at the premiere. Darcy Clay's father was there, and we had engaged with him quite a few times because we have to get the rights every time we did the stage show. So there was something really beautiful about actually getting to meet him and be sitting next to him at the premiere of the movie, and to get his blessing for his son's song was really touching. And also we've developed some really close friendships with people like Jordan Luck. Jordan's just the coolest guy in the world. And so it's been really great that they've kind of put a lot of trust in us because of the stage show.
Yeah.
I guess that's the advantage of theatre. Nobody really worries about
So
theatre.
you don't have to get their permission to perform their song in a theatre. Do you just pay the APRA rights and you can perform it?
You pay the APRA rights, but with some of them, like Bliss and Darcy Clay, you have to get the estate's permission. But yeah, they're not too worried because they just go, oh, it's theatre.
Yeah.
But with cinema, with
yeah.
film, then it becomes really a lot more sensitive.
Yeah.
But I feel we were lucky we gained their trust so that they knew what we were going to do.
Right. Did it the right way around. Who's got a question? Yeah. Kirsty.
You know that moment where Rose and Eric, it's all a misunderstanding towards the end, the climax of the film, and she's crying and he can't find the words.
Yeah.
How much did struck me that depression and secrets is something that really rang really powerful. How much what were your guiding themes and that moved you through the writing process?
Yeah.
Was it part of it, or?
Definitely. We spent a lot of time working on the script to build up to language. And shame was the biggest word for us, particularly for him, shame. And So it was about finding constant little moments for him and her where they're both experiencing shame, and that every moment is a miscommunication or a misunderstanding between them at every step. And that also they just don't talk. Like there's actually very little dialogue in it because we were trying to focus mostly on the lyrics. So it was very, very conscious. And also, you know, we'd have moments where we're like, oh, will this work or will this not work? And some people won't believe it. You know, it's very hard to sit there and go, well, someone not talk about something and, you know, wreck their lives. But when I talk to a lot of that older generation and people like my parents, you know, it's very, very true for them.
It rang true for me
Mm.
as Kiwis.
Yeah.
And for me too, you know, I don't know how often I've been in a conversation with somebody about something significant that happened in the past, you know, some very important thing, a key thing, and they'll say to you, you know, maybe it's your dad or something, how come you never asked him, and you just go, we just never had that conversation. And once they're gone, you realise how ridiculous that is. But yeah, I think we are a reticent people, and it's you know, you've made a film where they speak very little and they sing a whole lot, which is quite beautiful. That's how they unpack the feelings that they actually can't put into words.
Which I love. I was thinking about the other day, New Zealand love songs like Anchor Me and Love Not Given Lightly. They're not like American or UK or even Australian love songs. Like, you know, it's not, you know, I Want to Hold Your Hand. It's, you know, Anchor Me in the middle of your deep blue sea. That's dark, you know, like, you know, we don't, or even Love Not Given Lightly is quite a bittersweet song, you know, and that's why I quite love about using those songs is for me, they bring the complications, they bring the mixed feelings. They're not the simple stuff which you normally get in musicals, I think, is the really simplified song, whereas I think we have the complex song and then the simplified scenes around it.
I love that. That's so topsy-turvy,
Yeah.
like we are. Have we got another question? Yes.
Ask one more.
Yeah, you ask another one.
How on earth did you manage the timeline? Obviously, you had such a strong, incredible play as a blueprint, but how did you, in terms of plot and timeline and what people relayed to you and what was going to work as a story, how did you choose what was going to be in each timeline and what year you were going to use and why?
Yeah, so the very first thing we did was between myself, David, and Emily, we sat down because the structure of the stage show is romance, very last minute, everything happens, crazy end. And you can't really do that in film. So we shifted the crazy end to halfway point. So we did that first, which is even still weird for a screenplay because usually that event would probably be in, you know, probably a third of the way through. So that was kind of a starting point, was shifting how many, it was literally I had to get through so many pages of story at each point to know where I'd land. In the songs and the moments. A lot of the first half is very much from the play. It's really awesome that Garth Badger is here because there's little things like when they're in the car and he gets the blanket and tucks it up, that's a line in the play. So a lot of it was quite easy to put into scene visually because it was just spoken and it's just translating that. But once we got to kind of the middle, that's where it became all new scenes, and we worked a really long time, so many different versions, hundreds and hundreds of different versions, and probably the most crazy part was There Is No Depression. That was a lot of scenes. What they called it? It was like Monday montage madness or something. Rose had 58 costumes all up. There's over 1,000 costumes. So all of that kind of fitted in. Like we had quite a basic, we knew how much of the film had to focus in different areas, and then it was just sitting down and trying to get through it as much as I could, and then just coming back and constantly having script sessions. And yeah, I think it was easier to get into it because I had the play to start with. I think if I was trying to think of all these scenes from scratch, it would be quite hard, or it'd take a lot longer. But yeah.
Oh, yes, yes.
Just like the stage characters are so wonderful from the show I saw,
Mm.
and the film characters are so wonderful as well. Do you have much say in the casting?
That's spooky. I was going to ask that exact question.
No. Oh, yes and no. No. That's the director's domain, very much so. But David was they were really great in sharing, here are the top 5, here is, so I didn't feel like I was not a part of that, but it was very much, this is very much David's take and adaptation as a director, which is what film is. So he very much had the last say, but also because it's a relatively large New Zealand film, there's also a lot of input from the distributors and the film commission, and so there's a lot of people have a say on the casting. So no, but they were very kind to, keep me excited, like going, ooh, I remember saying to my sister, because my sister, she's played by Stephen Fenn's little baby, is the next door neighbour's. It's called Dirty Baby.
Here he is.
Hey,
He's up the
Freddie.
back.
So his little character that's in there for a second is inspired by a photo of my sister. So I was laughing that my sister's played by a little boy and I get to be played by Kimbra. So she wasn't impressed by that.
Writer's perks. It's a tough job.
Yeah.
Do we have... Yes.
So, I got the message, like, in the movie, like, how important it is to communicate in marriage. Is that the message you were going for?
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of key. Learning how to talk and to communicate and to... because in New Zealand that's quite a big thing for us. Because even the other day, trying to talk to Mum and ask her how she feels about all of this, and I don't have a clear answer to that because that's even a hard thing to describe for her. So it's not something we as Kiwis are very good at. I think we're better now, but the older generations, not good. So if anything, if this encourages people to be like, not afraid to talk about stuff which they find shameful, that would be pretty awesome.
You watched the movie and you found that in it. I think that in itself is really wonderful. Thank you for your question. It's just about time for us to wrap up, but we will take one more if you've got one more. Yes.
I just wanted to ask how your family found the whole, not just the film, at least the stage play.
I'm still waiting for some family to see it. I always ask permission from my mum from the very beginning, because there's also fiction mixed in as well. And that's where the things can be sensitive, when people are like, oh, that didn't happen, or, So I talk to all my family. Well, I talk to the main key people, that all the gossip will go back to them so they can talk about it. And they came and saw the stage play, which was really emotional. My father's sister, I remember she was just crying the whole time because she hadn't seen Dad in 20 years. And even though it was another actor playing him, she just saw him. And so she was, quite a big mess. For the film, the very first person before I started writing, before I signed any contract or anything like that, I spoke to Mum. And she took a couple of days to decide whether she felt comfortable enough with it. And she finally gave the okay. And I gave her the script to read once we got to the shooting draft. So I've always been checking in, and she, for a little Easter egg, she's in the wedding scene. There's a moment where they kind of flick past a woman with a little pink hat. That's my mum. So she was there that day. it's quite overwhelming, I think, for a fan, because, you know, most films are based on Sir Edmund Hillary and all these famous people, and this is a really ordinary family from Hamilton. So it's quite overwhelming, but I think they're all really proud of what we've done. And
That should be, it's very tight and very well done.
oh, thank you. So hopefully, yeah, I'll find out. I'm hopefully going to be in Hamilton and try to go with some of my other family and be there with them and see what they think. But it is weird. I would say it's very weird. Yeah, they like. Oh, I'll just tell you. I know I have to go, but there's a couple of really beautiful things that the director did, which is the Lime Zephyr Mark III that he was driving. That was the exact make that my dad first car he had. So when we were outside seeing the car for the first time, you know, you just like start crying. And then when Rose is looking at the slides, those are my dad's slides. And the picture of the guy, Eric, the birds flying, that's actually a picture of my dad with George's face photoshopped on. So that's like our family's most recognisable picture of my dad. So there's cute little things like that which make it quite special.
From little things, big things grow. And Rochelle's movie, Rochelle and David's movie, Daffodils, has its New Zealand Auckland premiere tomorrow. It's going out into the world. Its season in the cinemas is beginning. So if you loved it, please do encourage your family and your friends to come see it too, because it is a very unique and special New Zealand film. And thank you for coming tonight. And thank you, Rochelle.
Oh, thank you.